So as the plant is growing in the field, it goes through various stages of development. Similar to a human, it's a toddler or a baby, and then a toddler, and then a child, and then a adolescent. There's various different stages that the plant goes through, and the plant needs different things at different stages, obviously. And early on in the plant's life, I would say from the time it's planted in the ground until it starts to go into its reproductive process, whether that's in a cabbage filling its head, or if it's a tomato flowering and setting fruit, whatever that plant's reproductive process is, the early stage is critical in establishing the structure of the plant, establishing the roots, the basic, foundation that plant is going to be growing from for the rest of its lifespan. And if you can build a big, strong, healthy plant before it goes into its reproductive phase, you're going to have a much greater level of yield and quality of yield than if you have plants that are weak when they go into the reproductive process. So there's a few key things to be paying attention to in that stage of the plant's growth. One of them is bricks, and one of them is water. You absolutely must maintain water in the soil for the biological community to maintain activity. When the soil, if and when the soil dries out, the soil life goes into stasis. They basically go into a state of suspended animation, which effectively dramatically reduces the food being fed to the plant. So maintaining soil moisture through the plant's growth, but especially early on when its root system is not very well established, is extremely important. And also important is bricks. We like to say that we have a target of 12 bricks in the leaf of the growing plant. The new leaves should have a bricks of 12 in them. When you have that happening, and it doesn't happen very often, what you have going on is a very active biological system that is producing lots of sugars and feeding a lot of sugar down to the roots to feed the soil life. That sugar that's being produced in the leaf surface, in the leaf, and that correlates with the higher bricks readings, is really the food that is used to build that root system and then the top of the plant. And so if you have 2 weeks after you transplant your tomatoes in a leaf bricks reading of 4 or 6, you know that this period of time is not being well used to build a strong, healthy plant. You know it's going to start flowering and fruiting. You've got a number of weeks before that happens when you want to be building as healthy a plant as possible. And a key component to be looking for and working with is bricks. When you do not have high bricks in your leaf, as you will probably find in most cases, I suggest you look at the soil conductivity first. I like to see the soil conductivity start at 150 millisiemens and then move over time move up to 200, 300, maybe 400, depending on the crop and the soil type. But you want to see a gentle increase in soil conductivity over time. And if you can test that conductivity once every week, you can build a chart of how that's proceeding. But if you have a low soil conductivity, then it's should be no surprise that you've got a low bricks reading. It means you don't have sufficient energy availability in the soil. So in that case, working with a drench to apply some sort of a mineral or other food supplement to the plant through a watering system would be the systemic thing you'd want to do to improve the vigor of the plant and get that bricks reading to go up early in the plant's life. If you have good soil conductivity and you have also a low bricks, that will be the time when I would start to be applying foliar sprays of different minerals, seeing which minerals are going to be having the effect of raising the bricks levels in the plant. But these are some fairly simple techniques that can be used to monitor plant vigor and vitality and to improve it as you notice there's a need. After that first phase of the plant's growth, from planting up into a reproductive phase, once it starts to hit that reproductive phase, I liken it to puberty. You start to get a lot of plant growth, it becomes viable for reproduction. At that point is when the nutritional demands dramatically increase, and generally systemically that point is a good time to take what's called a weak acid soil test. The soil test we talked about earlier was a strong acid soil test. I called it a base saturation test. The weak acid test, or the soluble paste test, would be appropriately taken at this stage in the plant's growth to determine what minerals are available to the plant as it's hitting puberty and starting to reproduce. If you care about the vigor and the vitality, you've got a marketable crop, you can do a lot of good by taking a weak acid soil test at this point in the plant's life, discerning what is functionally not available and addressing it in real time. You will see dramatic improvement in the overall yield and health of that crop by addressing deficiencies at that point. So as the plant hits puberty effectively, starts to reproduce and starts to grow rapidly, the nutritional demands increase, and then as those fruit begin to set and fill and ripen, that's when the nutritional demands increase even more. I liken it to a woman being pregnant with 6 children. If you think about a tomato plant that's got 15 tomatoes on it, think about a pregnant mother. She is really hungry, and she needs a lot of nutrition just to maintain a basic level of functionality. She's filling these fruit, she's feeding them everything that they need, and oftentimes, in many cases, she's sucking out of her own bones or out of her own lower leaves the minerals that those fruit need. Oftentimes, this is a causal factor in what we see as disease. So in tomatoes, when we've got blight symptomology on the bottom leaves turning yellow and curling up, turning brown, dying off, that is simply the plant taking out of her lower leaves those minerals that she needs to fill her fruit and are not available in the soil. So we have some, if you understand what the plant's going through from a biological perspective, if you understand what puberty is, you understand what reproduction is, and then you have more of an empathic connection to what's going on with the plant, then you can see when it's suffering or needing something and address it systemically. But without this perspective that the plant's going through a process, oftentimes people's plants get sick and die simply because they haven't been taking care of them.